book begins by tracing the evolution of human cognition and explaining how our minds evolved to categorize information for efficiency. Categorization, as Levitin explains, is an innate skill that helps us simplify complex data, making it more manageable. However, our current reality, filled with social, economic, and material pressures, significantly taxes our cognitive resources. In response to these demands, the mind relies on organizing systems to offload some of the cognitive burden, such as writing things down to externalize memory. Levitin explores how cognitive overload, caused by the constant flow of information, impacts our attention and decision-making abilities. He explains that our brains are not naturally equipped to prioritize tasks, and we must actively filter distractions. The book explains how memory and attention shape our lives, explaining how external tools help manage fleeting thoughts and organize information. The cost of too many choices, understanding cognitive fatigue. Levitin discusses how modern life bombards us with an overwhelming amount of information and decisions. This constant flow of choices and data can lead to what's called cognitive overload, where the brain becomes exhausted from processing too much at once. Dr. Levitin explains that this overload comes from several sources, including the sheer number of products, decisions, and digital information that we encounter daily. One key idea discussed is satisficing, a term coined by Nobel laureate Herbert Simon. It refers to the concept of choosing an option that is good enough instead of finding the absolute best choice. This strategy helps people avoid wasting time and mental energy on decisions that don't significantly impact their lives. Levitin also discusses decision fatigue, which occurs when we are faced with an overwhelming number of decisions, even seemingly small ones like choosing a pen at the store. The author explains that our brains are equipped with an attentional filter that helps us focus on important information. This filter is guided by two principles: change and importance. When something changes, our brains automatically shift focus to it, like when the road bumps while driving, signaling us to pay attention. However, this attentional system has limits. We cannot focus on everything at once, and multitasking can be detrimental to our efficiency. The brain works best when it can concentrate on one thing at a time. Levitin explains that when we try to do too many things at once, our brains switch between tasks, which comes with a cognitive cost. This switching takes up valuable mental energy, and the more we switch, the more inefficient we become. Levitin notes that our brains were designed to handle a much simpler world than the one we live in today. In response to the information overload, he suggests that we can use tools and systems to help manage the flow of information. By organizing information externally, we free up our mental resources for more important tasks. Organizing life for a sharper mind, how to reduce stress and boost productivity. Levitin argues that our brains aren't as efficient at processing information as we believe, with attention being influenced by a combination of voluntary focus, automatic alertness to threats, and the tendency to categorize incoming data. He also explores mind wandering, controlled by the default mode network, DMN, which is responsible for creative thinking, but also a source of distraction when focus is needed. The DMN competes with the central executive network, which maintains focus and completes tasks. Managing attention requires consciously shifting between these networks, suppressing distractions and prioritizing tasks. Levitin outlines the brain's attentional system with 4 components: the mind-wandering mode, the central executive mode, the attentional filter, which helps us focus by blocking irrelevant stimuli, and the attentional switch, which allows us to switch between tasks. These components help us process and prioritize information, but the brain's limited capacity often requires external tools to offload cognitive load and improve focus. Levitin also discusses memory, which is not a perfect replay of events, but a reconstructive process influenced by emotions, context, and other memories. This can lead to inaccuracies, as seen in misremembered details of events like 9/11. Memory is shaped by the brain's categorization processes, which help simplify and organize information, but can also distort memories. In the second half of his work, Levitin applies these concepts to organization. He emphasizes creating external systems to manage cognitive load and reduce stress in the modern world, where distractions are everywhere. Using examples like how hardware stores organize products, Levitin shows how categorization can ease mental strain. He introduces affordances, environmental cues that help us remember tasks or objects, such as creating designated spaces for everyday items to reduce mental effort. Levitin also critiques multitasking, arguing that our brains aren't built for it, and multitasking leads to inefficiency, mistakes, and mental fatigue. He recommends focusing on one task at a time and reducing distractions like checking emails or social media. In conclusion, Levitin advocates for simplicity and consistency in organizing physical and digital spaces. Creating systems that align with how the brain categorizes information can reduce cognitive overload, improve focus, and enhance productivity, ultimately leading to reduced stress and a more organized mind. The digital connection dilemma, balancing social networks with meaningful relationships. The author explores how humans connect and organize their social worlds, both in traditional ways and through modern technology. He explains how, in the past, people mainly interacted with a small group of family and close friends. A major theme is the idea of crowdsourcing, where large groups of people help solve problems that would be difficult for individuals alone. For example, in emergency situations like child abductions, alerts are sent to millions of people who can help by looking out for a specific car or person, increasing the chances of solving the problem quickly. Social networks have become much more complex over time. In the past, people mostly interacted with those close to them, but now we manage connections from different parts of our lives, such as work, hobbies, and school. While technology makes it easier to keep track of all these connections, it can also be overwhelming. People now often use contact lists or apps to organize these relationships. Levitin talks about how we categorize people into in-groups, those we relate to, and out-groups, those who are different from us, and how this can lead to bias or even conflict, like racism. He explains that this bias is often based on a tendency to believe that people in the out-group are all the same, while people in our own group are more complex and unique. Levitin also discusses the challenges of modern social interactions, especially with online communication. While online platforms like Facebook or online dating websites make it easier to meet people, they often lack the depth of face-to-face interactions. Online dating, for example, can make it hard to truly know someone, leading to misunderstandings. Though digital connections are broad, they are not always as emotionally fulfilling as in-person connections. Focus over multitasking. How your brain can maximize efficiency. Levitin discusses how we organize our time, highlighting both the challenges and the brain processes involved. The author shares stories about individuals who struggle with planning and time management after damage to their prefrontal cortex, which plays a crucial role in organizing tasks, prioritizing, and sustaining attention. He explains how this brain region helps us sequence events, making sure we do things in the right order, and why damage to it can lead to problems like starting tasks in the wrong order or being unable to move forward with plans. Another important idea is that our brains are designed to be energy efficient, and understanding time management is about organizing activities in a way that maximizes its efficiency. Levitin explains the drawbacks of multitasking, saying it's mentally exhausting and reduces our creativity, as we tend to shift our focus back and forth, draining our cognitive resources. The brain does better when we focus on one thing at a time, and this helps us feel less tired and accomplish more. He also describes how the brain's ability to plan and organize is impacted by neurochemicals like dopamine. Too much or too little dopamine can lead to difficulties in focusing, and this is often seen in conditions like ADHD. In these cases, the brain struggles to stay on task and plan effectively. For example, individuals may have trouble with task switching or focusing on important details. Levitin points out that while multitasking is a cultural norm, it often interferes with the deeper, more thoughtful processing needed for creativity and problem-solving. Sleep plays a significant role in managing time and improving brain function. Levitin explains that sleep is vital for memory consolidation, where the brain strengthens memories and integrates them with existing knowledge. The author discusses the stages of sleep, focusing on how REM sleep helps with abstract thinking and learning. He also emphasizes the importance of getting consistent, quality sleep, as sleep deprivation can negatively affect cognitive performance and emotional well-being. Finally, Levitin touches on the issue of procrastination. He suggests that procrastination often arises due to difficulties in self-regulation, planning, and impulse control, all which involve the prefrontal cortex. Some individuals procrastinate because they find tasks overwhelming, or they prefer more enjoyable tasks with immediate rewards. The chapter ends by exploring strategy for overcoming procrastination, like breaking tasks into smaller chunks, improving self-confidence, and managing one's environment to minimize distractions. Beyond intuition, the science of structured decision-making. The author uses examples of important figures, like President Obama and CEO Steve Wynn, explaining how they are often faced with decisions where neither choice is ideal. Both options have risks and bad outcomes. In everyday life, like when we need medical treatment, we face similar challenges. We often need to decide between doing nothing, which could make things worse, or undergoing treatment, which might cause pain, side effects, or cost a lot of money. These decisions are hard because they're filled with uncertainty, and our brains aren't naturally equipped to think in terms of probabilities. The author shows that decision-making often requires a clear, methodical way of thinking, especially when probabilities are involved. He explains that when we face tough choices, like whether to take medication with side effects or go through a procedure that may not work, we have to consider the real risks involved and what the odds of success are, not just how we feel about it. He also explains how our brains often mix up different types of probabilities, like those we can measure mathematically versus those based on personal belief or confidence. He also talks about the value of using structured methods for decision-making, especially when we're emotionally overwhelmed or stressed. In organizations, especially in business or government, decisions are often made at different levels by different people, depending on how important or complicated the issue is. Levitin explains that a well-organized system helps people make better decisions because responsibilities are clearly defined, and the right people make decisions based on the information they have. The author also touches on how important it is to make ethical decisions, which can be difficult when there are competing interests. He talks about how our brains work when we make ethical choices, and how these decisions involve different brain regions compared to economic ones. Levitin also emphasizes that making good decisions, especially in tough situations, is a skill we can improve by using the right tools and frameworks to organize information, think about probabilities, and balance emotional and logical considerations. Final notes. Daniel Levitin's The Organized Mind is a comprehensive book on how the brain processes information in today's data-rich world. Drawing on cognitive neuroscience, Levitin explores how the human brain processes attention, memory, and decision-making, and how to utilize strategies to navigate through the constant stream of information. He examines how modern life overwhelms our thinking systems, leading to decision fatigue and lower productivity. Levitin explains how the brain's attentional filter works, and why multitasking does not work, and is actually hazardous, increasing stress while reducing focus and performance. He also discusses the power of controlling external and internal information to download cognitive loads and boost efficiency, with a major theme of the book being the tension between concentration and creativity. Levitin talks about the mind-wandering mode, which fuels creativity but often interrupts moments requiring full attention, such as meetings. He highlights the value of art, music, and literature in enhancing empathy and cognitive control, and underscores the long-term benefits of being organized and conscientious for health and success. Blending science with practical advice, The Organized Mind serves as a user-friendly manual to optimize mental clarity, manage information overload, and strike a balance between productivity and creativity in the modern age.